we have been hearing that the return of Giannis to the lineup is close. With the team playing the way that it has been, winners of 8 of their last 10 games, is there any reason for concern once Giannis comes back to the lineup?
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What it do, y'all? Welcome to Locked On Bucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the number one sports podcast network in the industry, your team every day. I'm Camille Davis, an NBA analyst with the Locked On Network and co-host of the Technical Foul podcast. Appreciate you for tuning in and making Locked On Bucks your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube. And today's bonus content comes to you from a conversation that had to be cut for time during last night's post-game episode with myself and Frank Madden talking about the Bucks 118-116 victory over the Cleveland Cavaliers. Frank just posed the question of, hey, when Giannis comes back, is there any reason for concern? And at first glance, that question might sound silly, but I thought the conversation that followed was fantastic. Check it out.
So I don't know, but I'm curious, Camille. Like, what's your level of concern that like Giannis comes back and they fall back into their kind of poor habits? Because on the one hand, I think certainly like Rollins and KPJ have generally been good all season. I think the numbers suggest that they play well with Giannis. I mean, I think the starting lineup before Giannis got hurt was like plus 13, with the 3 guards and him and Turner. So even with like the struggles they had right before he got hurt. But are you concerned that like, that they're so fragile? Basically, like what we're seeing, even if you believe in it to some extent, like, is there a fragility to it? I think there is some fragility to it.
I do
So
too.
I think I think you can be concerned that when Giannis comes back, it could throw them off, even though Giannis coming back is unequivocally a good thing that massively raises the ceiling of this team from a, whatever frisky sort of 10 seed to maybe a team that could actually go for the 7th or 8th seed. But like, I don't know. Are you worried about it? Are you wary of it? What's sort of your feelings as hopefully that draws closer to actually seeing Giannis back with this group?
I think for me, after the start that this team got off to this season and seeing where they were in the standings, at this point, everything feels like house money. So it's one of those things for me where it's like, I like to see the team out there competitive. I like to see them getting wins because I don't want to watch my favorite team lose consistently. I don't want to come on this show and have to continue to talk about losses, especially when they tend to happen a lot of the same ways with the same weaknesses being exposed over and over and over again. I get joy in the victories, but if Giannis comes back and the Bucks have to find that new chemistry of, okay, now what is the role for KPJ and Ryan Rollins now that Giannis is back and he wants more touches? Because before he got hurt, I mean, he was talking about the fact of like, we play too selfish at times. Like, I want the ball a little bit more. I think I'm a better when I'm a playmaker. So like, how do you balance that? If the Bucks don't find a way to balance that and they end up finding themselves outside of the play-in picture, I'll be a little disappointed because it's like, dang, I was kind of hoping to be able to watch more Bucks basketball. But at the same time, it's also like, well, hey, it's a good draft. At least you didn't cheat the system. You tried. You tried. It just was not good enough down the stretch. And now you might set yourself up to be in a position where you get a pretty decent draft pick. So I'm not here for the losing to lose because we're trying to tilt the scales, but I'm all here for ethical losses of we tried, it just did not work, and here we go. But for me, the period when Giannis does come back, it's more of a evaluation of like, well, what does next season look like in my head more than anything else of like, okay, what are we seeing when he comes back? Which of these pairings work? Who has good chemistry with him? Who we want back on this team? Assuming Giannis is also back on this team come the start of the 2026-27 season. And of course, it's going to be a long summer with a lot of conversation around that because he can't sign that extension until October. So we'll have to see. But for me, it's a little bit, I'm more curious than worried than anything else, because no matter which way it goes, I'll take the outcome. I'll take the outcome. Ultimately, I hope it's a more positive outcome, but if it's not, it could be positive in the long run, if you know what I mean. Another thing I would add to past Camille's thoughts is I'm also just very curious to see what the rotation looks like for this team upon the return of Giannis to the lineup. We've had the conversation about how good Jericho Sims has been for this team. Even Pete Nance during his minutes, he's looked good and he's found himself on the outside looking in of the rotation before Giannis even returns. What does the rotation look like? Will Doc start going deeper into his rotation and start playing 10 men, rotation instead of the 9 or 8 men rotations that sometimes he prefers to play? That's a question for me that I'm also very interested in seeing. But again, ultimately, I'm excited for Giannis to return to the lineup. I'm just more curious than anything, like I said, but the rotation, that's something I have my eye on upon the return of Giannis. And Frank has thoughts himself on the same question. Should there be concern or worry about the return of Giannis to the lineup? We'll hear Frank's thoughts right after this. Welcome to the 5-hour energy flavored draft. 18 different flavors to choose from, even some new options like fruity rainbow, cotton candy, and confetti craze. There's literally something for everyone. With the board being set and the flavors being ready, I got my number one pick for the 5-hour energy flavored draft. The everydayers already know. Sour apple, that's number one for me. It's an apple flavor that's like crisp and tangy. It's also tart. You get the sweet and the tartness. I love it so much. It's like bold, in your face, but also nice. But I mentioned before that a sleeper pick could be cotton candy because I personally have a sweet tooth. The cotton candy flavor of 5-hour energy, it's like being able to satisfy that sweet tooth, but without any of the sugar guilt. It's really light and airy, but it also has like this nice fruity twist. And it's just really nice, especially that little hint of vanilla at the end for that one. Could be a sleeper, but in my book, still on my board, sour apple is number one. And 5-hour energy shots give you a boost with 0 sugar. Make sure that you check out 5hourenergy.com or Amazon to find your new favorite flavor of 5-hour energy shots. Again, available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon.com. There is nothing like being in an NBA arena, from the crowd, the energy, the big moments. Like, could you imagine being in Fiserv Forum last night when KPJ hit that game winner over Jared Allen? That step back, crazy. Getting tickets though, that can also be kind of crazy sometimes and also very difficult. And that's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, and that is with the fans. My personal favorite thing about Game Time is being able to see the all-in price up front. No surprise fees at checkouts, because I've told y'all before and I'll tell y'all again, I am cheap. I like to ball on a budget. So being able to know exactly what I have to pay is good for my spirit. It soothes my soul. It's also great for last minute options too, with NBA tickets showing up at really, really solid prices. When you're using Game Time, everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure is on and you need the right hire, this is the job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what it is that you're looking for, from skills and experience to even location. So you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. The minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, but more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. So just head over to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs.
Yeah, maybe tied to that too. I mean, to me, one of the kind of like fundamental questions that I think also is part of the looking ahead beyond just this season story is, and to be clear, I mean, KPJ can opt out this summer, which I fully expect him to
Yeah.
do. Rollins obviously will have 1 year guaranteed left locked in. Then he has a player option, so he's basically going to be an expiring contract next year. AJ starting his big extension. That guard trio, the numbers on them overall in the season are actually quite good. They're plus 8.5. They've, basically their offense and defense are both quite good. The
Mhm.
defensive rebounding with that group is actually also quite good, which, is interesting given there's obviously a lot of different bigs that those guys have been paired with.
Those guys do a good job of
Um,
crashing themselves too.
yeah, and it's funny because I think there's sort of an inherent, like, I mean, I think a lot of people feel it. I do too, of like, this nagging feeling of like, you can't, like, are you really building your roster around, 3 6'4" guys basically
Yeah.
starting together? And obviously they do very different things offensively in terms of the AJ versus the two guards. The two guards are obviously much more comparable, although Ryan is a much better spot up and step back 3-point shooter than KPJ is. KPJ is more, I think, shown he's more dynamic as a playmaker and
All
attacker
handle.
than
Yep.
the other guys. But like, is that actually like what we're gonna go with, or do you need to get a more traditional small forward that you can play there to have better size and all that? Because I think on paper, I think Jang is interesting. I think people are probably like higher on Jang than probably he ultimately will end up being. I think because he's kind of a new toy for us, and he shot the piss out of the ball so far. Right, he was shooting like
Yeah.
52% from three coming into this game. That said, I think there's a good argument that like Usman Jang, even if he doesn't shoot very much, he has gravity. He is a good 3-point
Mhm.
shooter, and he's a very solid and large defender who gets steals and actually rebounds reasonably
Gives
well.
you some
Like,
size on the wing.
that's probably like the best kind of role playing three that you have on the roster, interestingly, right? Because Kuz is, you know, Kuz does more stuff, but he's kind of inherently chaotic and, takes record scratch shots and does stuff that, in his 3-point shooting, obviously is less consistent. Um, but it's hard because it's just like, especially this season and the way things have been going, it's like, are you really going to bench one of, AJ Ryan and KPJ?
Mhm.
Again, you don't have to play the, KPJ and AJ played 38 minutes tonight. Rollins played 35. Obviously,
On the
you
second night of a back to
probably,
back at that.
yeah, like I think in general, you're probably not playing those guys that minute load, right? When, you have Giannis back and you have a bit of a different dynamic. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting, just I think, kind of like fundamental sort of for 2 games from now, whatever it is. Um, I mean, my sense is probably not going to be Friday against the Knicks. Probably it's a little bit after that, although it seems like he's getting closer. But my sense is it probably will be the 3 guards. I think AJ has started. I'm just looking. Has he started every game he's played this year? Um, it feels like it.
I
I don't know
think
if I have
so.
that correct, but it feels like he's basically started. He's been the kind of the constant. Yeah, 52 games, 52 starts.
Yeah.
Last year only 7 starts in 72 games. So obviously he's done both. Last year I think there was a sense of like, oh, he's better off the bench, although the sample
Mhm.
on his starting was very small. So um yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I mean, I don't think it's not like Jang has some big body of work that like has proven he's a better player than AJ Green. But I think certainly we all hope that we'll continue to see Jang get chances once Giannis is back. I think the interesting question is what happens with Jericho Sims when Giannis is back,
Yeah.
because the minutes have to come from somewhere. We've already seen Pete Nance fall out of the
He was
rotation
out.
in a number of games lately, despite Nance. I mean, I think Nance has been great this year. The plus minus numbers, I think, back up the eye test, right? He's just an energetic guy who just makes the right play on offense. He's not bad defensively, even if he's not,
Mhm.
like, he doesn't have
He's
like
not elite either, but
yeah, he doesn't
yeah.
have like center strength or something like that. He's more of a four. I mean,
He's
he's
really
even played.
smart though.
Exactly. And honestly, like I think that's sort of on this team that's actually like very important because I'm not gonna call like KPJ and even like Rollins like low IQ players, but they are in Kuzma as well. Like KPJ and Kuzma are inherently kind of like unpredictable and chaotic. And
Mhm.
so I think that does create some challenges playing with those guys because you don't always know what they're going to do. And sometimes it's, I mean, like KPJ improvising the shot that won the game tonight, you know?
Over
And
Jared
Rollins,
Allen at that.
yeah, exactly. And Rollins, like with his turnover problems of late as well, like you can make the case, like, well, you know, Rollins needs to kind of clean some stuff up as well. So I think there is an argument for why, and honestly, I think that's why AJ Green is so valuable for this team because he's like predictable. Like,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
yeah.
he makes simple plays. He doesn't really go beyond his skill set on either end. And I think Nance kind of similarly, like just makes simple plays and is smart and is skilled. I think that's actually like really important for this team to balance out some of the kind of, you know, I'll call it what, you know, those like 3x3s where it's like chaotic good, chaotic bad,
Yes.
lawful, whatever. Like KPJ at this point, from a basketball standpoint, I think is chaotic good. Uh, Kuzma, your mileage may vary depending on the night. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's such a strange. I mean, it's such a strange season, Camille. Again, like I come back to this. Like, can you imagine being told before the year that Ryan Rollins would be putting up, you know, like 18-5-5, and KPJ would be putting up like 18-8-5 or
No.
and 2 steals. I mean, if we told us that before the season, you'd be like, oh,
The Bucks,
awesome,
they must be a top 4 seed or something.
you know, like whatever. But it's been a strange season, so it is what it is, and we'll take it one game at a time, Camille, and
That's all we
hope
can do.
wake up each morning hoping for a win. That's how I've made it 30 some years as a Bucks fan, and
Yeah.
we'll see how much longer that serves me, but I'm gonna get through this season. I know it. So
I feel you on that one. And I'm really curious too in the comments. Let us know how you feel about what the chemistry might look like when Giannis comes back into the lineup. If you have any worries about that. And that'll do it for today's bonus episode of Locked On Bucks. Truly do appreciate you for tuning in, for jumping in the comments, for making your voice be heard, for supporting the show in all the various ways that you do. Make sure you're subscribed and that you follow the podcast to get all of the latest episodes. We will be back tomorrow, myself and Justin, with the Friday episode of the podcast, as well as another bonus episode, game day episode of the podcast, a crossover episode with Gavin Shaw from Locked On Knicks, previewing that Bucks and Knicks matchup. So make sure you keep it locked in to Locked On Bucks.